are a heritage from the Lord, offspring a reward from Him. This suggests children are a precious gift from God to be valued and cared for.
In the United States, a child a minute is taken into DHS, CPS, and so on custody. The reality is their picks are already selected, you just don't know it. Being perfect no longer matters. It's what the adopting families are looking for.
Who is it stealing the children, you ask? From caseworker to the White House, the buck stops at all levels, just not where it is supposed to be. The services your family needs. We, the people, have paid for to ensure your reunification. Title 4 says reunify at all costs. United, we stand means nothing to us when it comes to family values. Children are being ripped away from their families. Parents are the results are atrocious. Termination of parental rights is not healthy for anyone, just profitable for the people enforcing the line.
In the United States, CPS makes upwards of $3 billion per day on trafficking and selling our children. The corruption may start with the case worker, but goes through the judicial system, passing the governor through the Senate and into the White House. The entire system has a hand in the business known as CPS.
Our children are stolen every minute of a 24-hour day. They are being robbed of their innocence, their trust, their happiness. As parents, we are isolated and betrayed by a government we trust.
All right. Well, this is the CPS Punisher here, guys, coming to you live tonight on a Monday. I don't know what's going on with the videos tonight. They don't want us to view those, so I apologize. The internet says it's fine, but they do this stuff to us. Hopefully you guys had a good weekend. By good weekend, I mean no CPS actions, no CPS coming into your homes. I hope that that's the way it went, because there's going to be quite a few people that aren't going to say the same, because as we know, CPS has no boundaries. They don't care about weekends. They don't care about holidays. If they want your child, they're coming to get you. So it is Josee Monday, but we don't have her here yet. So I'm going to bring in the rest of the panel. Our new constitutional lawman, Mr. Charles Lincoln. We got, of course, Melissa, and we got our lawman guru here, Mr. Law Enforcement Guru Herbert. He's here with us as well. How we all doing, guys?
Okay.
Outstanding.
Good.
All right. So, Charles, what do you think? Do you got any news from the weekend that you found that may or may not help us out with the child protection racket or anything of those sorts? Anything interesting in the news at all that you saw that was worthwhile speaking about right now?
Oh well, no, not in the Child Protective Services Department. I mean, for a while on Saturday, I thought that we were on the verge of World War III with the attack on Israel, but looks like that was just yet another exercise, another scare tactic, and to get everybody, mentally conditioned to accept wartime conditions without a war. By wartime conditions, I mean possible. And we're getting closer and closer and closer to being a complete police state, martial law.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's probably what the thing in Israel is.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Is that just a red flag? They're just trying to red flag some things. Hello, Brenda. How are we doing? Is this just a forefront to what's going on here in our country? Are they let's make up the news from the Israel stuff happening so that we can cover up maybe more child trafficking that's going on, maybe some of these type of scenarios.
I'd be willing to bet that. That's a possibility. I mean, from the legal standpoint, of course, the whole country is going to be riveted the next 6 weeks on New York on the Trump trial, and that's going to be a major distraction also.
Right. Hey, did you see? I'll see if I can pull it up here. Brenda Cameron. Hello. How are we, dear? Hey, if you would like to, if Josee doesn't come in, at some point here, maybe if we wanted to, if we need something to talk about with you, maybe we could pull you in here. So send me an email. I think you have it. It's abolishcps.com at gmail.com. And maybe we could get on here.
I'm sending it to Brenda right now. The new link.
Oh, okay, cool. So yeah, did you ever see that video that they found in that New York building? It was like a synagogue or something like that. There was a bunch of tunnels underneath it, and they found a bunch of like children's clothing and things like that. Did you see that video?
Yes, I did. Unfortunately.
So was that that was a real thing? That wasn't some sort of hooligans just putting together? That was a real deal that took place?
Yeah, rats in tunnels. It's real, and they filled it in very quickly. So reminded me of the speed with which they filled in those tunnels. Reminded me of how fast they carted off the remains of the World Trade Center after 9/11.
Right.
Whenever there's a crime scene that needs to be manipulated, they make sure that the actual crime scene is gone overnight.
Yeah, it is crazy, isn't it? It could take some of them years just to clean up a house that there was a murder involved in, but yeah, there's a massive affair like this, and the place is built, dug in, filled up, dug over, put a new building on it, and a nice shiny open sign. And you say, well, this is what just happened. It's just crazy how fast. There's also talk of last weekend, there was also a bunch of earthquakes, I guess, somewhat in New Jersey that was noticed, I guess, throughout the Northeast this past weekend, or the one before. But they had also said that there was the reality of that was that there was they were blowing up tunnels that had led from a certain place that they had found, and they that's what it was. The government was blowing up some of these tunnels that they were trafficking these kids, supposedly trafficking children through, or any type of trafficking that they do. I mean, there's these tunnels all over the place.
I know that Toledo, Ohio's built over a bunch of tunnels. Not only over a bunch of tunnels, there's actually underground rivers because back during slavery days, they would move these slaves in boats under the town. and they come out on the Maumee River.
Where is this?
Oh, wow.
Toledo,
Where is it?
Ohio.
Okay, Underground Railroad. I've never heard of underground channels, but Brenda, I sent you the link. You should have it, by the way. I forwarded it to both of your emails.
All right, cool. Yeah, it's crazy how much this stuff is starting to come to fruition now that they're, you know, like the P. Diddy thing did a couple of things that are, you know, did a couple of things. It did awaken those to the scale of child trafficking and what's going on with that in the business of Hollywood. The other thing it did, though, is it took away the heat from the government and put it back into Hollywood, which we know isn't the truth. I mean, Hollywood just doesn't get these children. I mean, CPS still collects these children and then turns these menus over to the pedophiles, to those that are seeking the thing. And those are facts. You know, the United Nations showed statistics on this stuff that children that come through the human trafficking belt are coming from 80, I think it's 88% of them that they catch, or that they not catch, but the ones that they recover out in the world in these markets have come through the hands of Child Protective Services. They've gone through their system, you know, and they've come out on the other side, not adopted, but turned into sex traffickers or whatever that they've turned them into. Sometimes it's labor, sometimes, but regardless, at the end of the day, the children that CPS is supposedly attempting to protect, they're not getting it done because these children are being outsourced by the hundreds of thousands in our country, and we don't even pick up on this, and no one's jumping with this going, oh man, this is terrible. I just don't understand why.
Herbert apparently can't get in, and he wanted to make a point about the New York Times.
Yeah. Sure.
Hey, Darren, did you see the thing where they're now boycotting Planet Fitness?
Oh no, I didn't know.
So there's this big thing where they're boycotting Planet Fitness, and they've lost something like $53 million. I was watching the information on it. At a Planet Fitness in Alaska, they had a transvestite, quote, he identified as a transvestite, but he was literally shaving his beard off, washing his ass in the women's bathroom. And there's kids and other stuff in there. And this woman complains about it. She's like, I'd say 50, 60-year-old woman, you know, there to walk on the treadmills in the morning. She spoke to the managers about how uncomfortable it made her feel, and the fact that there was small female children in there, and this guy is just all hanging out in the middle of the locker room. So now they suspended the woman's membership for complaining. But the man can still go in there and shower himself and shave and everything in front of the little girls, and that's fine because he identifies as female, as a transvestite. So because he identifies as a she, it's okay to be a pedophile. Because this man, there was no part of this man that was female looking in any way, shape, or form. I'll put it to you this way, Darren. He passed for as much of a girl as you would.
I think that would be a pretty good looking girl.
Brenda says she's in the waiting room waiting him.
I had not a question. I wanted to comment on what you guys were talking about in New York.
The tunnels?
Yes. I've been in the tunnels.
You have?
My brother was a New York City police officer. He was plain clothes. He dressed like a homeless person pushing a basket. He took me down into the mole world. They have a whole bunch what they call mole people. They live in the system, Amtrak subway system. When I went down there, I didn't even know I was still in New York. There's a train system station that has never been opened, that was open for FDR. What's the president, Roosevelt?
Yeah.
And it ran from one part of New York to the other. And those tracks are still there. The old train is still there. I saw it, and there's a whole bunch of people living under there. Darren, have you ever really been to New York?
I have never been to New York.
I've been to New York many times, but I've never been in those tunnels. I've never heard of them. That's amazing.
I'll tell you what, you may be able to get something on YouTube about the Mole People, New York. Try that out. You might pick somebody up that did a story about it. But it does exist, because he went down there to arrest people that committed crimes, perpetrators that were trying to hide amongst the homeless. He didn't go down there after the homeless. He went down there looking for specific people, but he had to dress the part. When he took me down, I had to dress the part.
Wow.
Because they had their own government underground. Underground, they have their own government.
There's a lot.
Yes.
I typed the Mole People life in the tunnels beneath New York City.
Yes, there is literally hundreds and hundreds of people that live under the streets of New York that you don't see. So when you talked about finding children's stuff in some building or whatever, there's more tunnels under Manhattan than you would even think about. Like whatever happened to the gold that was in the basement of the World Trade Center? That disappeared pretty quick, didn't it, Charles?
Well, it definitely wasn't there.
Wasn't it also interesting, Charles, how buildings came down like a demolition, straight down?
Oh, I'm actually a member. Actually a founding member of. Even though I'm neither an architect nor an engineer, I'm a founding member of Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth.
Charles, you also know that it takes a lot of heat to get kerosene to burn, and that's jet fuel.
Well, yeah, that's why we were just talking about cleaning off the World Trade Center, and basically, yeah, they didn't want the steel melting explosives to be found.
Oh, Josee's here too. Good. Yay. Josee Monday. There she is. Josee, how are you?
Hi.
Sorry to cut you off.
I fell
I just
asleep.
saw your message and I was looking at those things. Oh, awesome. Charles, have you met Josee yet?
Yes, we met last Monday.
All right, cool. And we got Brenda here as well. But Josee, tell everybody what we got going on with you.
Okay. So, last week, did I tell you that I went to court? Yes.
You had court the next day.
Yeah. Okay. So the next day, went back to court, and then they got everybody because I had people there and everything, and the court was open, right? So as soon as I got there, the lawyer got everybody to get out of the courtroom. She made it to be a closed court, publication ban, can't talk about it, blah 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 blah. So like everything is silenced. Yeah. So the two people weren't there. It was only they were only represented by their own lawyer. It wasn't the same lawyer as the week before. As the week before. Remember how I said I didn't want the other lawyer because she was my husband's in the family, so she wasn't there, which was a good thing. I was like, yes, she's not here. So it was this other lawyer I didn't know. At one point, the lawyer went so I was sitting in the prosecutor place, right? And then at one point, she wanted to hand in a paper to the lawyer, and I yelled out objection, and then the special constable was there, and he goes, you're not allowed to talk." And I looked at him and I said, "Excuse me." I said, "I'm the prosecutor." And then I looked at the judge, and the judge is like, "Why are you saying objection?" And I said, "Because she has no reason to hand you in to give you a paper if I didn't see it." And then he's
Right.
like,
Good for
"Okay."
you.
Yeah, I know, right? And I was like, "Yay, okay." And then when I said that, after the special constable was like, he was standing beside me, behind me, and everything. Like it was like intimidation tactics, right? And then and then, like I said, this was the first time, so nobody knew what was going on. And then he gave me another date, and I was like, okay. So now I'm just like, what just happened? So now I'm waiting to go talk um to someone to see if what they did was even legal. Like everything was like it was weird.
So that was for the death threat one, or was that for
No,
that was
that was for my human
for your
trafficking.
granddaughter? So
This
where
was
do you go
this
now
was the
with this?
human trafficking one.
So that's you pressing charges on the state.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So where do you go now with this?
So now I have to wait till the other date that they gave me that I'm not allowed to say because it's supposed to be private.
Top
And
secret.
what?
It's top secret, I said.
What was that, Brenda?
I'm just saying it's top secret information.
Yeah. Do they do that in our country too, Charles? They shut us out like that, say that you can't talk?
They
I
they did that quite a bit to my husband, and they've done that to our family. Yeah,
just
that's what I don't get. In our CPS case, they would say, um, and they put it in writing too, and say it at the beginning of the court that the children are not present, and nobody objected to the children not being present, and we objected. You know, like you said, well, yeah, we object because they said they wanted to be here, and they're not here, and we're not allowing them to be here. So
I'd like to make a point that almost all gag orders entered in court are subject to challenges that are never made, and I don't quite know who to blame this, but it's something that everybody should be aware of. I mean, it probably wouldn't work in Canada because it's a different legal system, but in the United States, anytime there's a gag order, it should be challenged unless the judge has basically applied what's called strict scrutiny. The judge must find that there will be irreparable injury resulting from certain speech. The judge must find that he has considered all other alternatives to the gag order he's entering, and that the gag order he is entering is the narrowest, most limited infringement on freedom of speech he can possibly enter that will achieve the compelling governmental interest in suppressing the speech. That is from a 1976 Supreme Court case called Nebraska Press Association v. Stewart. It has never been modified or reversed. A legal gag order must comply with strict scrutiny in the analysis of what the threatened harm is from the exercise of First Amendment rights, and what the judge has done to consider alternatives. And you know what's really interesting? Trump has paid his lawyers millions of dollars. I follow the Trump cases as closely as I can, and they've never raised this point in regard to the gag orders entered against Trump. And I'm just like, why are they under instructions not to vigorously represent Trump's interest? What is really going on here? But the term for gag order, you know, another term for what a gag order is? It's called prior restraint. You know, another term for prior restraint on freedom of speech is called censorship. And basically, censorship is the primary evil that the First Amendment was enacted to prevent: censorship. And there's nothing more anathema to our democratic republican system than censorship. And again, this is one of the things that astound me about the law, is that there's a lot of good law on the books. The Supreme Court has handed a lot of very protective issues down, but unless people raise it, it's waived. It's gone.
Well, what it fucked me up too, because like I read what a private prosecution was, and like in my head I thought that it was gonna go one way, and so when I was there, I was like, I had like my speech ready. I was like, this is what I'm gonna ask for, and then they side railed it, and they made it like go sideways, and then I was like kind of caught off guard, like, what the fuck is happening here, right? Like, I don't know if that was part of their setup, but like I was like, oh shit. And that's why I was like, after it was done, I was like, wait a minute, was this even legal? Like what the fuck just happened, right?
To surprise you, to confuse you,
Yeah.
and to disorient you. That is part of the toolbox of a spy and basically a government lawyer. They want you to be confused, disoriented, and in a state of shock. And that is you at your weakest. I mean, as I understand it, Canada basically has no equivalent of the First Amendment. They have no charter of fundamental rights.
Oh, we have a charter, but yeah.
But I mean, for some reason, it's a statute, right? Like England, it can be changed. Parliament can change the charter anytime they want. They don't have to go through a special procedure like asking all the provinces to ratify it. It can just be done by a majority vote in Parliament, right?
I don't know exactly the 100%.
That's how it is in England. That's how it is in England. Okay. In England, they have something called the Constitution, but Parliament can change it from day to day.
Mm.
And they do, especially with regard to things that are inconvenient, like freedom of speech. But there is nothing in the courts that is more abusive than gag orders.
Well, like, I mean, they tried to say, well, we need to protect the name of my granddaughter, and I looked at the judge and I said, this has nothing to do with knowing her name or not. Like I was like no, but the reason why they're doing it, because they don't want the two names of the people that I'm trying to sue out because they work for CPS, right? That's why they don't want it. They want a publication ban, blah, blah, because of their name and their reputation. It has nothing to do with me. Everybody knows my granddaughter's name, you know?
You know, it's very similar to the case I had in Alachua, because Alachua was the next county over from Dixie County. And after all this happened with my daughter, when I tried to rescue her and I came back, well, of course, in my discoveries, I see all this defamation by this CPS worker, this Jason Katz, and working for this Partnership for Strong Family, they call it. And he was, he's in Dixie County or whatever, and actually he's in Gainesville now. That's what I talked to you the other day about. Yeah, Alachua Academy. That's what he's working for now. Very curious place that's run by the juvenile justice system, you know, and it houses up to 28 girls. But in any case, what happened is we tried to take a small claim for the defamation in front of this judge. It was Judge Van Voorst, and literally it was a Zoom hearing. Of course, I initiated the whole thing, and after his attorney rattled off a bunch of information that had to do with the kidnapping charge that I had, they had to do everything with saying the dependency case, saying that we were trying to bring up the defendant's case and saying, no, we're not trying to bring up the defendant's case. We would like a chance to speak. But after the lady repeated herself several times and read off a whole thing about our dependency case and the Charlotte County case,
I think you cut out. I didn't hear the
Whoop, yeah, I can't hear her anymore.
is it not coming through?
There
Oh,
you are.
now it
Yeah,
is.
there you go. You're right there.
I think I was talking too quickly.
Yeah, I think I cut you through, right?
But
You're there.
yeah,
It's back
it's
where
just
you
like
were.
it's very similar because they're pretty much degrading us and acting like, oh, well, you can't do this. You can't come in here and say, you, this, you know, he downright lied about me and my husband, saying that, there are a whole bunch of two law enforcement. So that's a crime right there. He's lying to law enforcement about us.
Hey, Charles, question. Do you think in the United States we would get away with trying to do private prosecution of the department when you have cases to where they're just absolutely violating everything and breaking the law?
No. Make a long story short, no. I mean, Brenda and I often talk. Well, we're always talking about Dixie County, and you know, are you familiar with the case of Terry George Trussell?
I've heard the Trussell name, but not familiar with the case.
Well, anyhow, this is 10 years old. This is old news, but Terry George Trussell was a very respectable citizen, a veteran. He had been in the Air Force. He had been a pilot, and he was just about as decent a guy as could be. And in tribute to his decency, he was elected. He was called up for jury duty and elected the foreman of the grand jury in Dixie County. This is like 2013 or something, 2012. Anyhow, he set himself. He had never had any involvement in the legal system, but he set himself to reading about what the job of a grand jury was, and he found out that the job of a grand jury is to investigate crime and to recommend prosecution to the district attorney, or to indict people and demand prosecution by
Okay.
the district attorney. He did that. He was arrested and prosecuted for subversion of governmental functions, and he died in jail. To make a long story short, it's one of the most.
Yeah, and then there was that one part of it where he stood in front of the courtroom with witnesses, of course, his family and all these other witnesses were there, and the judge claimed that he was in contempt of court for not showing up for this hearing that he was.
When he was standing in court. Yes, that was. I believe that was probably January of 2014, I believe. And
when we moved over there.
I recommended the. I was already disbarred at that point, but I recommended a judge, a lawyer that I had known for many years there that I thought was of international standing, and I thought she was the only one who could both make a stand and make a movie out of it. She had won an award for documentary films at Cannes in France, and I just really thought that this was a story that should have been made into a documentary. And she totally blew the case, and she wouldn't listen to me at all. And I mean, Terry George Trussell died in jail, and it broke my heart. He was such a fine man, and basically, they said that, part of the whole litigation of this case was only the district attorney in the modern American system can bring criminal charges. No, a grand jury is there to assist the district attorney. But what that basically means is a grand jury is there to rubber stamp whatever district attorney. And basically, Terry had fought with the district attorney in Dixie County and said, "No, I'm not. I can't wait for you. I have to investigate on my own, and I have to prosecute government officials if I find that there's evidence that they have committed crimes." And no, I mean, based on my experience in that case and several others not quite as dramatic.
There was a lot of nepotism going on there, and there's still people from the commission there. You get the same names popping up, that Higginbotham, like I said, Melissa. And so
I think nepotism kind of overruns a lot of courts, big cities and small. I think a lot of those positions are handed down through appointment. And the good old buddy system that they have, I think, is corrupt to a pretty high level of corruption.
yeah, and then like the sheriff, well, who was sheriff before him? It was his dad and his dad before that. So his grandpa. It was a whole line of Hatchers as sheriff. So probably at the same time, Terry was there as well. Hatcher was in there. And
right.
And then he retired out and escaped out of there like, this is over somehow, but it's definitely not over.
But did I tell you last week? I don't think I told you last week, but I had 2 court dates. So I had the Tuesday and the Wednesday. Did I tell you what happened on Tuesday?
No. I think you had Tuesday, but you said you went and you really didn't go into detail.
Okay, because on the Tuesday was for my fake death threat. Okay, and that was the one where the judge wanted to see if they were going to pay for a lawyer for me to cross-examine them.
Right.
So when I went there on the Tuesday, he's like, the judge is like, do you have any objections that you have a lawyer for the 3rd of June? And I said, I don't have an objection. I just don't want to pay for a lawyer because I can do this by myself. And I said, and there's only going to be 2 names that I would accept to be representing me to cross-examine them. And then he said, okay, so the courts are going to be paying for my defense lawyer for the 3rd of June.
That's nice when you can actually get a court to pay out.
That's weird, though. The prosecutor is charging me, and now they're paying for my defense.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to say it, but do you feel like that could be a setup?
Oh yeah, 100%. But that's why I said I would only accept these 2 people, and so now I'm gonna wait to see, because before I said their names, I went and saw them and I said, will you ask the questions? Because my questions were already ready to ask, right? So my questions are already done. And the guy said, yes, I'll ask the questions, because they're just claiming that they're scared that for me to cross-examine, which I think is retarded, because like I still need to follow the protocol, I would imagine, in court. So it's not like I can be rude, or I'm not going to ask leading questions or non-leading questions. Like you would think that they would think that without me having a lawyer, I could technically put myself in more trouble. Like, why are they giving me a lawyer that now I will win 100% of the, like,
actually, Josee, even I can answer that one for you. We don't even need Charles to answer this one. The reason they want an attorney to represent you is a attorney will do things in a much nicer way, that questions that you would be more direct on, they'll beat around the bush on, or they may not ask at all. So even though you have a list of questions You know, an attorney's not going to walk into a courtroom and make waves that gets them on the judge's naughty list. So even though he works for you, he still may not follow your directions the way you want it done, because when you really start outing them for the truth, it kind of ticks the court off. So that's why they want an attorney, so that when they record that record, they have the mildest record that is more neutral and even favorable to them based on how things are asked, what things are asked, because they don't want it to be a one-sided fight when you go to a higher level. So
Right. And then my other question will be, because I had it on Tuesday and Wednesday, right? So two
yeah,
different cases, two different cases, two different reasons, right? So on Tuesday they say that they'll pay me a lawyer, and on Wednesday they make it private, right, for the other thing. But my question for you, sir, is it was the same fucking judge.
Okay, what's the question?
The question is that even legal itself? That he saw me the day prior to give me a lawyer, and now he's seeing me and saying that, for like, is that like legal to have me
Yeah,
for
I guess
both?
technically it just sounds like he's modifying his prior order, right?
What?
He is
well,
modifying his prior order.
Charles, the first day was a criminal case against her. The second day was a private prosecution criminal case against them.
Yeah.
They're accusing her of death threats. She's accusing them of child trafficking. So it's just kind of a shit show on both sides.
Like, is he even allowed to see me? Like, wouldn't it be a conflict of interest the second time because he saw me the day prior?
No, he's the judge. I mean, if we're going to have judges, we can't presume that they have conflicts of interest unless we can prove it.
He saw me the day before.
He saw you, but he saw you as a judge. He wasn't representing you. He wasn't your lawyer.
Okay.
And so, I mean, and he wasn't the state's lawyer or the provincial lawyer, the Queen's Bench lawyer either. So King's Bench, I guess it is now. So it's so I mean, yeah, I mean, judges can hear different cases that are closely related, but I mean, I don't think that there's any theory of conflict there. It's just he's wearing slightly different jurisdictional hats, but he's hearing two different cases between the same parties. It's like it's you don't have counterclaims in criminal court, but it's the functional equivalent of a counterclaim, right?
Okay, because I just find it odd because, like, the month prior, there was a judge for the criminal case. He didn't want to do the criminal case because he said conflict of interest, and that's because he's married to the wife of the children's aid.
Okay,
Well, that would be a conflict of interest. I mean, that's a direct relation to the case.
Very, very specific. I mean, that makes sense. That's not about handling two cases that are related. That's about handling too close a relationship.
See, Josee, if I was a judge and you came to me and you wanted to prosecute someone for breaking into your car, you can. I can hear it. I can rule on it. You can come back to me later that same day with the same person prosecuting you for throwing a brick through their window, and that's not a conflict. He's just the person there to decide the evidence put in front of him. Now, if he worked for you, or if he worked for the opposing side, then it would be a conflict because he has a special bias toward them. On the other hand, being able to prove those things in a way that they'll recuse is far and few between.
Like I said, I mean, back in the 80s and 90s, it was a point of honor that any hint of bias or affiliation would lead a judge to disqualify himself, to recuse himself. And starting with W. Bush as governor of Texas, and then spreading all over the country with W. Bush as president, they pretty much got rid of recusal as a matter of judicial integrity. And I mean, up to the point, I think that's the end of judicial integrity, because the judge I worked for in Palm Beach, Florida, for instance, the district judge I worked for, NFL Rice Camp, he once interrupted a hearing in the middle of the hearing because he realized that he, as a private attorney many years before, had as a client one of the clients of one of the attorneys, and he just on his own initiative, sua sponte recused himself. And of course, the other side got really pissed off because they didn't like it. But I mean, that was the standard of integrity. That judges should examine their own conflicts. They should remove themselves at the slightest hint of bias or prejudice or any conflict of interest. Now that's all gone.
Yeah, didn't those kind of changes to it kind of set in like the early to mid 2000s? You really started seeing a lot of it.
Well, I again, because I saw what he was doing in Texas in the 90s, I blame W. Bush, Bush 43.
Right. But I mean, wasn't it about, like, I would say right around 2005 on a national level that all of a sudden, instead of the integrity of the courtroom being about protecting the honor of the bench, it became a more or less, we'll throw this whole shit show, and if it ain't quite right, we'll let the Court of Appeals figure it out.
And the Court of Appeals won't touch it, basically.
I find that they always argue that it is the discretion of the trial court.
In 2005, again, that's the beginning of W. Bush's second term. I mean, the timeline is exactly right here. He had to implement 9/11. In his first term, and that took up most of his time, and the war in Iraq, and then he got to screwing over the rest of the country in his second term.
Right. Yeah, and they hid so much of the political agenda behind the war. I remember right after 9/11 and all that shit, and back when Bush first came in and we first really went into that war, I remember the speech where he said, well, they hurt my father. And I remember thinking, here's an overgrown child getting ready to use the U.S. to bully some other country. In the meantime, they drove our gas prices up to $5 an hour, turned most of the courts against us, and did absolutely nothing to help protect the American citizen.
Well, I mean, that the things he said are legion that were nonsensical. But it's not because he was stupid. He said things like that on purpose to throw people off and to make people think he was stupid. He knew exactly what he was doing. I think Biden's working on his own language. Child sniffing babble. Well, I mean, it's a great safety to have an agenda and let people think that you don't know what you're doing, because then they can't figure it out.
I had to write this down about Biden so I wouldn't forget. No, he said whatever was going on with Iran, they said Iran was pretending. They knew that they would fail, whatever. Well, Biden says that's malarkey. Oh my God.
Hey, Charles, did you ever see the videos of Biden sniffing children?
Oh yeah, I mean
Oh,
that's all over the news. But
you know what's funny about that? Because Chris did videos about that a long time ago. I mean, a long time ago. And when Joe Biden died, he did a whole video on that. So he actually was the first one to say "fuck Joe Biden" because of sin. I'll send you that, Charles. I'll send you that. That's a classic.
Yeah, Josie, if you've never looked at it, Google Joe Biden sniffing children.
No,
Look it up
I've
on
seen it
YouTube. It
too.
is hilarious.
I've seen it too. Yeah, it's gross.
You
Yeah.
can't help but see it. It's all over.
Well, and you got people like him, like his daughter's diary was released from the drug rehab because she had forgotten it there. It got into the public hands. There was a bunch of stuff in there about where she, as a child, had to take
Was defended,
showers
yeah.
with her father and all that crazy stuff. But yet they attack us. I mean, like in my case, they attack me and call me a bad parent, but they can't give an allegation against me. My daughter's been damn near killed in care, and my other daughter was just moved because they argue possible molestation. But I'm the bad parent. It'd just be nice to be able to grab a judge and shake him and say, "Can you get your agenda straight?"
Well, isn't that why there's people jumping over the judges thing and jumping out at judges? I mean, it's gonna keep happening. It's
Well,
bound.
do any of you guys remember hearing, this would have been about 4 or 5 months ago, about a shooting in Maine where there was like 13 to 15 people shot?
Yes.
That actually occurred less than an hour from where Darren lives, and it was a father who had his son taken from him, and most of the people he was shooting at were actually like director type people for the Department of Children's Services up in that area during an event. So it was actually a CPS related shooting, and it was very sad because I believe it was something like 15 shot and like 12 or 13 died or something like that.
Well, that's the thing. They won't tell you the part about them being, part of the victims of CPS. They won't say that part.
Well, it was released on one news station, and then you never heard about it again. But we watched it as a live event, and Darren stayed very on top and active in watching it because it happened in the same area where his daughter is. So, in fear that it could have been somewhere where she might have been, he stayed on top of it. But the very next day, the guy down in, was that Maryland? That guy went on a rampage and shot the judge down there because they denied him custody of his kid.
Wasn't that the one in the driveway where it was in the driveway?
Of the courthouse, yeah, he like pulled up to the driveway of the courthouse, shot the judge point blank, and they found that he committed suicide. He drove like something like 2-3 miles down the road and killed himself.
So is
Yeah,
this
and it's
Robert Card. Robert Card is the suspect here. Lewiston.
I think so.
October of last year.
Would it have been? Yeah, right around October.
Yeah, I usually keep up with that. Sometimes it's hard to keep up with all that's going on.
Well, and it's sad that the American people are getting backed into a corner in a way that we, the people, feel that the only thing we can do is stand up and end up going to violence because there's no one to listen. It don't matter if you go to your state rep, your senate, your district, your circuit, your appellate, your supreme, or even your U.S. courts. you know,
Because
most
everybody
things get overruled in a way that unless you have a Charles in your pocket, you can't get nowhere.
I wish I thought I was that effective. I mean, unfortunately, the reason I'm disbarred is that I think I threatened people a little bit too much, and they thought I might become effective, and they didn't want to let it happen. So, just by way of full disclosure, Charles, having a Charles in your pocket is no guarantee of anything. My partner, when I was a practicing attorney in Texas, my law partner was a lady from Houston named Valerie Davenport. We were talking about going into politics, and we decided that basically she should run first. And she came within a few thousand votes of being elected to the Supreme Court of Texas in the year 2000. And 9 years later, she died mysteriously in her office in Houston. I had left Texas by then, but she insisted on staying, and she died. And her sister refused to have an autopsy because she had been predicting that she was going to be murdered.
Speaking of good people, inhumanely euthanized. Are you familiar with Nancy Schaefer?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, she was another one that highly spoke out. And have you ever reviewed the Nancy Schaefer reports?
Yeah. Yep. Sure did.
I'll get you a copy of them, Charles, because she breaks down the funding of the department and how many children they have to be actively moving to bring in it. The state of Alabama, just on a for instance, currently has 62. It's like 6,270 some kids in care. Because there's actually a state website here in Alabama. You can look it up. It's part of their transparency law. Okay. So last year, they averaged about 5,800 kids. Okay. Over averaging 5,800 kids, you know, they turned an extra 1.2 billion in miscellaneous government funding that was received through the Title IV system. Now, obviously, a smaller portion of that goes toward people paying child support because it's matched. I believe it's something like 70 cents on the dollar. So if you're ordered $3 in child support, then they would pay, like $2.20, So, I mean, with that being said, though, the largest portion of that money was for, quote, safe housing, rehabilitative services, education, and to meet the needs of the children. Now, in the state of Alabama, they only pay a foster parent about $500 a kid. Okay. And they're supposed to give reimbursement if the parent goes over, but they will fight you tooth and nail on reimbursement. The other part is that the Department of Justice last year ruled that the state of Alabama was neglecting the children in inappropriately housing them in facilities not qualified to house the children for the reasons being housed, and they were not offered an education, or it was an education less than adequate to what they need. So over $1 billion in, and they can't even put a kid in school and give them a good warm blanket to hide under.
Richest country in the world.
Crazy.
We are the richest country in the world. It's pretty
Well,
amazing.
I think the real question becomes, what are they doing with all this money? Where is it going? Because it's not improving the roads. It's not, we're not putting up windmills. We're not doing things to better our state. So we're bringing in an extra $1 billion to line everyone's pocket for child trafficking. That's kind of a scary thing.
An extra billion? You think that's all
Yeah,
there is?
it was. Well, it was an extra $1 billion for the kids.
I think it's way more than that.
Well, no, I'm just saying through the open checkbooks in Alabama under Title IV funding for the kids for 5,800 kids, they brought in something like 1.4 billion.
Okay, so just in Alabama, you're saying? Okay.
Yeah, just in Alabama. So you realize if you take 5,800 you take 5,800 kids and you break down 1.4, 1.2 billion dollars. That's over $1 million a child in revenue that they're bringing in, that they're just lining people's pockets, and the kids are still being abused.
I don't think government assistance is particularly efficient, to put it mildly. I mean, I think last week I was commenting on the fact that, in the city of New Orleans, in a much smaller city of New Orleans, in the mid 19th century, there were terrible epidemics of malaria, yellow fever, you name it, and so there were huge by then relative standards, large populations of orphans, and those orphans were housed in about a dozen or more gigantic orphanages, which are now among the most desirable condominium and hotel properties in New Orleans. Isn't that strange that private property, private investment on the part of private business people created basically luxury accommodations for orphans, which are still treasured over almost 150 years later, and the government basically puts up prison-like hospitals or foster care in terrible circumstances. I mean, government is not the way. Government, the way to prosperity and the way to improve people's lives is pretty clearly through private enterprise and protecting freedom. Because nowhere was ever freer than the United States in the 19th century, and the fruits are still apparent in my hometown. And
right.
I just look at what's going on right now, and we live in. I hate to echo Alex Jones. I do not love Alex Jones. That's the imagination.
You better love him.
Well, we live in a prison planet. That's what I was going to say. We live in a prison, and the whole planet is becoming that. And I told you a little bit earlier about my son who's dedicated his life to world taxation. And that's the end of it. Once there's a world taxation system where you can't get out of it, no matter where you go, that's the end of any semblance of freedom. And of course, what they're going to say is, well, we want to take care of everybody in the world, just like they're taking care of you and Josee and Darren and y'all's kids.
Right.
And
well,
I mean, this is the world we live in. We want to protect you, Brenda. That's why your husband's in jail right now. We have to protect the rest of the people from people who want to, go after judges saying that they're pedophiles.
Hey, it got the an ex-host that got him in contempt of court because he said that right in court. He
We've
actually
opened up
called the
a can of
judge a
worms, I can
pedophile.
tell you guys, because we're gonna expose all these pedophile judges. This is it. We've opened it up, a can of worms. They're loose. Believe
Yeah,
me.
but in the same, Brenda, you poke the bear too much, the bear will bite off the arm that's poking them.
Well, nah, I got nothing to lose. There's nothing else to lose at this point. Just moving
But there
forward.
is there's your freedom.
You have your freedom, Brenda. You're sitting in a very nice house, looking very nice right now.
Did anybody notice how I painted all the walls? I've been like going, and there's no stopping me. I'm fixing it up. I'm gonna flip it.
Right.
I'm gonna get a Winnebago. I'm going on the road, guys.
If you lost your freedom, they wouldn't let you do that.
So it's getting to be about that time. Josee, anything you'd like to say?
No, it was an exciting week.
Well,
I bet.
God protect us from exciting times.
Yeah, exactly. I'm positive that things are changing, though. I'm hopeful that they're scared. I feel that they're scared and things are moving.
Well, and when you get appointed, whatever attorney they give you, if you don't feel that he'll comfortably represent the case you want to put forward, you might piss him off, but you could always ask him to sit second seat to advise you.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear from you, Josee. You're represented by counsel.
Please leave this man alone.
One more word from you, and you're going to find out what contempt of court really means.
Oh.
Right. Brenda, any last comments, suggestions, thoughts?
No, I'm saying this is what I'm doing. I'm giving it to God. Just pray. That's what I think. We just got to follow. He's leading the way. We just got to follow.
Right. Yeah. And that's about the half of it. You got to focus on the things you can change to better your life and not focus on the things that you can't change. Hey, Herbert, you're hiding out there somewhere? Do you have any last questions?
No.
I'm here.
Oh, he is.
There he is. Any closing questions or statements from you? Oh, we lost volume.
Are you there?
I would just like to say before we close up, remember April 15th. This is the day one of my mentors, Donald W. McPherson, one of the greatest tax lawyers in the United States, described April 15th, the greatest threat to civil liberties and the liberties of the English people in the history of the world. April 15th turns everything upside down.
Now it's the anniversary of the Boston Marathon, Boston bombing.
Oh my God. Herbert, are you actually talking?
Can we hear you now? Oh.
Nope, we can't hear him. Hey, Herbert, I don't know what's going on with you. Oh, there he is.
Okay.
I can hear you now.
Okay. What I was saying to you is basically, if you guys get a chance, go into YouTube and look up Mole People, New York City.
Well, I've looked them up already, and there's a lot of stuff out there, but.
No, you'll see what the tunnels are like under Manhattan. It will blow your mind.
They made an episode of the TV series Bones, in the tunnels underneath Manhattan?
It's a city down there. People don't realize it.
Yes.
There's a whole city down underground.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to share that with you. And as far as CPS, unless Herbert is with CPS personnel and can show you something signed by a judge, don't let Herbert in.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't let the police barge in.
That's right. Unless there's a court order.
Oh, for that matter, don't let the witch with the paperwork barge in either.
No.
Not the witch. But as long as the witch got something signed by the courts, don't fight him. Because if you fight him, then Herbert's going to take you to jail.
Right. Right.
That's all I got to say about that. And on another note, Melissa, did you get those video things I sent you?
Yep, I've been reviewing them. I'll text you about them later.
I'm going to give you a call. Yeah, I'll give you a call.
All right.
I'll give you a call, okay? Bye-bye.
Charles, you have anything that you want to tune in closing?
Oh, I think I already gave my closing to remember that April the 15th, tax day, is one of the key elements of this triad of evil between the Federal Reserve banking system, the Internal Revenue Service, and the national welfare system. That is the real. Those are the real three parts of government. The division of power is not legislative, executive, or judiciary. It's the IRS, the Federal Reserve Bank, and the welfare system. And we've got to focus our attention on understanding how that is a worldwide program that is basically destroying families and private property, and with those two elements, all phases of legislation.
Right.
I think it's true.
Well,
April 15th, everybody.
Yeah, I guess on that note, that kind of wraps up another night of victims, CPS victims hunting justice, and I am Melissa, and we are out of here.